Doug Breskin, John Thurston, and Brad Harriman, and we also have an alternate, Julie Jacobs. Okay, go ahead.
Audrey Klein, I'm the chair of the ZBA. Suzanne Ryan, vice chair. Tim Cronin, secretary.
Clerk.
I'm sorry. Sarah Silk, Luke Freudenberg, and our alternate tonight, Kate McMullen.
Okay, and I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Kathy Barnard. Okay, first of all, I'll read the notice into the record. This is GMR Holdings of New Hampshire, LLC, and Wagon Wheel Trust at 1642 Center Street, tax map 009-001, a joint public hearing by the Planning Board and Zoning Board of Adjustment for the following applications. Special exception, case 13-SE22-175-161. This is a personal wireless facility. Next one is a variance, case 14-V-22, section 175-164A2. That's for the height variance for the personal wireless facility. Third one is the site plan review, case 2022-08, site plan review for personal facilities. Okay, so now that we've read that into the record, let me just explain how we're going to proceed. The planning board will first review the information. I'll ask the applicant to do the site plan application, because we have to be able to open the public hearing, and this seems to be the best way to do it according to our attorney. The planning board will review the information after we hear from a brief presentation by the applicant for the site plan, so that we can talk about the waivers that you have proposed, and then accept the application as complete, and then open the public hearing. And then we'll ask the applicant to make, once the public hearing is open, then we'll ask you, the applicant, to make their presentation. After the presentation, any members of the public, as well as ZBA members, can comment and ask for additional information. After we get through this information, then the hearing would be continued until, I think, Audrey, until your next meeting, which is the 3rd of October, and then following that with our meeting on October 4th.
I believe we have a meeting on the 19th of September.
The 19th?
Audrey, if you could pull your mic close. Even though it's not working in here, it's still working on the internet.
Okay.
Oh, is it? Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Our September meeting was pushed off until September 19th because of the holidays, so we actually have an extra meeting date available, plus the October meeting.
Okay, well, then you need to move a little closer. We're very sorry.
The microphones are not working tonight, so we're going to have to speak up.
Could you please comment on the date?
So it really, I mean, the zoning board and the planning board can each continue to its own date certain.
Okay.
So if the zoning board feels after tonight that...
Can you stand up or come closer to us?
Each board can continue to its own date certain after tonight, is what the advice from council was. So if the zoning board wants to continue to September 19th, they can do that. If they want to continue to the October 3rd meeting, you can do that.
Okay.
The unknown at this point is if additional information is requested tonight, if the applicant can have that information available by that next date certain. So I think you have to wait and find out what additional information is requested before determining the dates.
Madam Chair,
Yes, well, can I just, okay, after, I just wanted to finish up because I was trying to go through what we're doing as a hearing.
I just had a point of
Yeah,
order.
oh,
The woman
okay.
that couldn't hear is an alternate, and I wondered why she wasn't sitting at the table.
Okay. Okay.
She has recused herself from this hearing.
Okay, we need to know that.
Thank you for
Okay,
bringing that to my
so-
attention.
Okay, so the ZBA will then have your hearing on September 19th to review the application for the special exception and a variance for the height of the tower. After ZBA acts on both applications, the planning board will meet again to make a decision on the site plan. If ZBA requires more time to act, the planning board will then continue their hearing. All of the municipalities have been notified to determine if there is any regional impact, and no comments have been received as of this date. There also will be a balloon float on. Have you?
Date to be picked tonight.
Okay, all right, so we have to pick a date when we'll see the balloon floating. And there'll also will be, ZBA will have a site walk, and if you'll let us know when that's going to be, then the planning board members can also attend. Okay.
The balloon test and the sidewalk would have to be before September 19th.
May I address that point? I don't mean to step on anybody's toes,
No,
but
no,
I'd like to
that's-
sort of streamline a couple of the hearing procedural issues, if
Okay.
I may. I don't mean to
Oh, okay, I'm just
get ahead of
going
the
on
game.
the advice of
But
our
I think
attorney.
she raised a very good point, and I'd like to
Okay.
address that. If I
Okay, go ahead.
because I think it might help. My name is John Springer. I'm an attorney from Springer Law in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'm a resident of Wolfeboro. I'm here on behalf of GMR Holdings. I'm joined by Peter Cook, who's a project manager for GMR as well. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but on that point, in terms of the next hearing date, et cetera, and I'm going to try to keep my voice up for everybody.
Yeah.
If you can't hear me, let me know, but that's usually not my problem. But I think we have to get the process started tonight. I think a very important part of this whole component, or this whole procedure, is going to be the balloon test and also the site walk. And honestly, we can't get the balloon test done and submitted to this board by September 19th. It's just too soon. And so what we would suggest is open it tonight. I'll give an overview. Tavis and I just talked about the procedure. We've been talking about that before as well. However, I would ask the board, both boards' indulgences. I don't want to address the merits of the variance or the special exception or the site plan tonight, because a lot of that is going to tie into the balloon test and the site walk. And I think if people are here either for or against, I think they deserve to have the benefit of the balloon test as well. I think that's
Right.
going to inform a lot of your decisions. We're very confident about the balloon test, but you never know until the balloon goes up in the air. And so what I would suggest is, I'm happy to give an overview tonight. I plan to do that, and Tavis and I just talked about that. I can do my 15-minute overview, or I can do my 45-minute overview. I suggest that it might be better to do a quicker one, but I'll keep talking as long as you have questions. But once we do the procedural aspects of reviewing the application to make sure they're complete, touching those bases, doing the pre-application meeting, so to speak, et cetera, and I give my overview, I think the next order of business would be to schedule a balloon test. I have some dates. Unfortunately, none of them are before the 19th. And then pick a date for the site walk and the balloon test that works for everybody. We can do those on separate dates, by the way, or the same date. But then we will be ready to go with the balloon test results. And when I say balloon test results, we're going to have a packet for people with photographs, et cetera, which we will be able to submit. And we'll be ready to go hopefully in October for both boards. I understand we're going to be doing it on different nights, which is fine after tonight. But that's how I would suggest we proceed. And address the variance criteria and all the other criteria in October, once everybody has seen the balloon test, et cetera. If that's
Okay.
a fair way to proceed.
All right. Do you have a suggested time for the balloon to float?
I do. I have dates and times. Unfortunately, as I said, none are before the 19th, but these are the dates that we can do it. Wednesday, September 21, Saturday, September 24, Sunday, September 25, Monday, September 26, and Wednesday, September 28. I know I just talked fast. I can go through those again if you like.
What time?
Well, we suggest 9 to 11 in the morning. Mornings are better in general because the winds usually are less. And I assume people know what a balloon test is. I don't mean to make assumptions for everybody in the audience, but we're going to float essentially a big red weather balloon at tower height, 160 feet. And then we're going to have a team go around, take photographs from various areas in the town. You can choose tonight to tell us where you want some photographs taken from. We don't go on private property, but we'll drive the roads, et cetera. People are free to go out and take their own photographs if they want. The people, I'm not going to be there. I don't do balloon tests. Let's get that straight. And sometimes I get dirty looks from the team, but I have to tell you, weekends are the best because people are home, they're not going to work, et cetera.
Say the dates one more time.
Yeah, I'll go slowly. And keep in mind, we should also pick a backup date from this list of dates in case we have a bad weather day. But Wednesday, September 21, Saturday, September 24, Sunday, September 25, Monday, September 26, and Wednesday, September 28. And I suggest 2 hours because I think it can be covered in 2 hours. If you want a little longer time, we can.
What's the time between having the photos and having the report to submit?
Well, I would say probably at least a week. At least a week.
So my suggestion to the boards would be to look at 21, 24, 25 to have enough time to be at an October meeting.
All right.
Which is October 3rd.
But
I'm good with that here.
before setting the dates, you have to get an accepted application, then
Yep.
because this meeting is acting as the notice of these events. So,
Okay, well, we're
that's
just having a discussion now,
Correct,
then
yeah.
we'll go back.
correct.
Okay.
So those are the dates, and I think Tavis is correct. We should just have this discussion, and the boards can take a formal vote later on.
Well,
The only Saturday is the 24th.
yeah,
And our meeting is the 20th, the next meeting.
yeah, but we're going to do this in October.
Yeah, so we're just going to
yeah,
schedule the
Right,
balloon test.
yeah. Okay, would the 24th work for everyone? With the,
With the back of
with the
25th?
25th being the backup? Okay.
How long will the balloons be in place?
We usually aim for 2 to 3 hours. I said 9 to 11. I personally think that's plenty of time. You can say 9 to 12 if you like. I don't want to do too early because the crew's coming from elsewhere and they got to set up.
Go ahead.
May I ask a question about
Sure,
the?
yeah.
You asked for a date and a rain date, the 24th or 25th. Well, he didn't say rain date, another date. the
Bad weather
25th.
day.
Ed.
Yes, backup date. What determines whether you need a backup date, and how would we be notified if it was canceled on the 24th, if it was going to be rescheduled for the following day?
We try to make that call the day before as late as possible, and we could email with Tavis or the town office and try to coordinate that way.
And what constitutes a reason to cancel? High winds, for
High
example?
winds.
Thunderstorms, that kind of
Yep.
thing? Okay, thank you.
Rain?
Rain, yeah, I would say serious rain. I mean, a light patter, I don't know. That would be, the team's call, not mine.
Would limit the visibility if there's fog up there on the mountain.
Sure, if it's heavy fog. Yeah.
Certainly you want a ceiling at least 160 feet.
Yeah,
Okay, so does everybody,
Preference is 3 hours. People on weekends have places to go and things to do.
okay, can we do it 9 to 12?
sure, we can do 9 to 12.
Okay, all right, and does that weekend make sense to people?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so.
I do have one question. The visibility map that you
Yep.
produced, how was that produced without doing the balloon test?
Computer software. That's just to give you a basic overview.
So it should mimic it.
I'm sorry?
It should mimic that.
It should. I'll be honest with you. I've seen other types of those things. I've never seen that particular one used before. So I hesitate to say how accurate it is, quite honestly.
Okay.
But because we're doing the balloon tests, you know, that's going to be the key evidence.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we've settled on that, and then Audrey, would your site walk be on,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Did you pick a bad weather day as well?
yes, the 25th?
All right.
Yep.
Yep.
9 to 12.
Yep.
We'll have to officially do that later, but
Yeah.
that's where they're landing.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll
Right.
announce it. Oh, okay, and the site walk would be,
September 19th, our meeting.
no, it's, well,
Well, we'd want to, you don't want
you
to have
want to see the balloon first.
at our site walk?
No, you could do the site walk first.
Can we do the site walk on the 24th?
Don't see-
Same
I-
time
you
period
could.
as the balloon?
Okay, all right,
Or the 20, yeah.
okay, all
But
right.
let's plan on meeting at a time specific, because we'll only be there for a small part of that 3-hour window.
And we have to notice it.
We have to notice it.
Well, the noticing is the action the board takes tonight. There's not a separate newspaper notice and things like that. When the board schedules its continued meeting to the 24th at, say, 9 a.m. for the site walk and balloon, that is the notice.
So there will be no public notice in the paper when the site walk and balloon date is? If they don't happen to watch the meeting on TV, they won't know?
Not unless I'm asked to put it in the paper, no.
I think it should be in the paper,
In the paper.
right.
Be a quorum, public should know.
So there won't be property notification, but just the newspaper.
Just the newspaper
Correct.
article. Okay. No, 9 to 12.
So let's do our special exception meeting at 9, from 9 to 9:30, or 9 to 10.
Meet at 9.
Meet at 9
Wait a minute, what are you talking?
on the 24th.
Our site walk, Kathy.
Oh, yeah, okay, all
So
right.
we do the sidewalk at 10, planning board?
No, we can go anytime, whenever.
It doesn't have to be that day.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that. We can go over anytime, the planning board can go over
No,
anytime.
the town regulations require the zoning board have a quorumed site walk in order for them to act on a special exception. The planning board is not required to go on the site walk.
But we'll know when they're going to go, if you want to go along with them,
Correct.
because they're going to mention that.
It might make
Yeah.
sense for the planning board to go because representatives will be there from 9 to 9:30. So, you know, it would kind of streamline things if the two site walks coincided for them bringing their people to the site. Just a
Okay,
thought.
all right, so,
How about the 15-minute spiel?
I can do the 50.
okay,
well,
so there's going to be a notice put in the paper, right?
I will put it, once it's finally
Okay.
motioned, there will be a notice in the paper, yes.
Okay, for the balloon
Can I make a
float.
statement on that? That it might be actually better, because people don't always read the legal notices. It might be better to have an article in the paper talking about this. Maybe that's not possible, maybe that's not something that should be done. But if it was, on the front page, the 5th page of the Granite State, that might reach more people. I
Okay,
don't know
and
whether
we-
that's possible.
We could also put it on the town website. Yeah, okay. All right, so can we get started then? Is that all
Sure.
right? Oh, okay, all right.
Did we,
Then-
I know we have to take a motion, but did we settle on a date and time for the site walk?
We've,
24th at 9.
9 o'clock, okay, great, thank you.
Okay. So now.
I'm sorry, Kathy, I have some procedural questions, but I don't know if you want me to wait until after you do your site plan things?
Yes, that seems like the best thing to do, okay?
I guess my concern is the section 176, 168 application procedure assumes that the planning board is going to be reviewing all these things as well. And this is not under site plan review, so I don't know whether the things are exactly the same or whether you also need to review this section.
Yeah, well, the planning board has their review from the planner, and that is what we're going to get started on right now, preliminarily. We'll then continue this again. Oh, okay? Okay, all right, so do I need to read this in the record again? I don't think so, but this is for the cell tower at 1642 Center Street, and this is a site plan application. Okay, so if you would just make a brief presentation, and then we'll move on. Okay,
I will be happy to.
Okay.
I won't do my 45-minute presentation.
Okay, all right, great.
Again, my name is John Springer from Springer Law. I put up on the board over here the site plans, or one of the site plans. I think everybody on the board should have a set of plans. And the one I'm looking at right now is Z1. And if I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to turn this a little more towards the audience.
Okay.
Because I think everybody, if you're looking at C1, you're going to be able to follow pretty carefully what I'm talking about there for the people in the audience. But we're here for a project which entails a personal wireless service facility, popularly known as a cell tower. The applicant, GMR Holdings, is a company which does a lot of these type of sites throughout northern New England. Thank you. And this property is located at 1642 Center Street, which is also, of course, known as Route 28. And sheet Z1 gives a good bird's eye view of the host property. It's about 73 acres in size, and it has a sort of a long driveway, if you will, off Route 28. There's a single-family home there, sort of in the middle of the property. We are proposing to use the existing access up to the house, and then an access drive from that area out to where the compound is proposed to be. And if you're looking at the plans, the compound is the small square in the left-hand corner of the property, if you will. If you look at it, I guess it's the southwest corner of the property. And I'm going to show you in a minute another sheet that shows the compound in a little more detail. But GMR has leased a small area of this property from the landowners, and that's the compound area. They also have an access easement and a utility easement. And the compound is situated in such a way so as to take advantage of the topography of the land and the height of the land, as well as we've moved it off the property lines by 185 feet. You can see there's a circle around there, around the compound. It's 185 feet to the property line. The tower is proposed to be 160 feet. And so we've moved it back tower height plus 25 feet, which I believe is the normal setback in that zone. It is approximately 1,448 feet as the crow flies from Route 28. It's about 634 feet from that rear property line there. It sort of depends on which one you define as the rear property line, but it's 634 feet from that property line up to the house. It's about 743 feet. And so we've set that into the property to try to get away from property lines, et cetera. The compound and the monopole are shown well on sheet Z5, which I will attempt to show in 1 minute. And sheet Z5 has a profile of the monopole. It's 160 feet. I'm going to talk about why that height and why this property in just a minute, but also on sheet C5 is a good bird's eye view of the equipment compound. And if you look at the profile, you'll see there's going to be a 6-foot chain link fence or fence around the compound area. The compound's 100 feet by 100 feet, topped with 3 strands of barbed wire. The pole itself, obviously, is 160 feet. GMR has one federally licensed carrier already signed up for this site, which is Verizon, and included in that packet was a letter of interest from a second federally licensed carrier, T-Mobile. The reason there are 4 sets of arrays, each one of these rectangular pieces at the top of the monopole are a set of antenna arrays. There are 4 because this pole is designed to accommodate 4 federally licensed carriers, so that when people come to town, when carriers come to town and they need coverage in this northern Wolfeboro area, they can go here. And you want, I think most municipalities want to foster what's called co-location. That's a fancy word meaning subleasing space, because obviously it reduces the number of towers. We showed 4 carriers here instead of just Verizon to show that we have the space on the tower for the 4 carriers. Interestingly enough, Verizon is not taking the top slot on this tower. Not taking the top slot in this tower. The top slot is reserved for town of Wolfeboro emergency responders. And we have obtained, and I think the police and fire have submitted a letter of interest in this site because they need coverage up in that area as well. Each set of antenna arrays needs 10 feet of separation. That's center line to center line between the antennas, which is why at 150 feet, Verizon's center line is 150 feet, the next one is 140 feet, then 130 feet, 120 feet. The compound itself is basically a square. It's 100 by 100. Again, and by the way, each carrier that comes to town is going to have to come to, and probably in front of the planning board for site plan review. This does not exempt, if Verizon's going through this process, other carriers are going to have to deal with the process as they come on board. But again, we're showing some future carrier spaces within the compound area. They're marked future carrier lease area. Those are not going to be built yet. The only one that would get approved, I'm not making assumptions, but if we get through this process successfully, Verizon will have its equipment there where it's shown in black right there. And this tower is at the center of the compound. And the way this works is basically if your cell phone or your laptop is wireless and you're within the coverage footprint, your signal goes up to those antennas, it goes in a cable down to the base equipment, and then it's routed out to wherever you're talking to in the country or the world.
Okay, Sarah, this is for the planning board. We're trying to get this taken care of so we can then
There's a
open.
question on the map.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you that generally.
Why don't you address it to the chairwoman,
Yeah.
and then she can relay it there.
Yeah.
Okay, Madam Chair, I just had a quick question for him relative to the map. It shows Verizon plus 3 carriers on the pole, and yet on the map itself, it shows the Verizon setup and only 2 future carriers.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What was it?
And only 2 future.
I the gist of the question.
Right.
It's a 4-carrier pole.
Right.
Right, but on the map, it shows the Verizon setup and 2 future carrier lease areas, not 3.
Right, because the last one we felt would have been too cluttered. We wanted more information. We could draw the other light rectangle in there, but for instance, where we had the verbiage proposed 160 AGL tall monopole, we didn't want to step into that. So we don't even need to show those future carrier spots in the future, but this is a 4-carrier pole. The compound will accommodate 4 carriers.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great.
Now,
Are you almost finished with your brief presentation
done.
so that we can open the,
I'm almost done.
and you need to speak to the waivers also.
Okay. The reason we chose this site can be shown in one easy exhibit, which is attached to the radio frequency report. It's the topography map. Radio frequency waves are blocked by hills. They're blocked by a number of different things. This has very challenging topography. And you can see where this site is located, almost in the cleft of Route 28 as it goes through that ridge. And the reason this area doesn't have good cell phone coverage is because of the topography. And that's why we chose this property, and the better height you have, the better elevation, the better coverage you have. So that's why we chose that site, and that's why we chose that parcel, excuse me, that piece on that parcel. So I'll be happy to address any questions you have.
Well, the waivers,
I'll be happy to address any questions, or just to address the waivers?
yes.
Okay.
Because remember, we're going to continue this, our planning board. No, just do the planning board. That's all we're talking about right now.
I think these are pretty straightforward. Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. I know, you're kidding. Thank you. We asked for a number of waivers. We did a written submission with those waiver requests. I hope I've covered them all, but one of the waivers I think is pretty straightforward. It deals with the minimum scale. We think the scale we used on the various sheets works quite well. If you looked at the waiver request or the plans, you'll see that the scales don't always match up from sheet to sheet. But we think they are a very accurate representation of what we're doing. To the extent that we didn't use the exact scales set out in the site plan regulations, we asked that this waiver be granted and you just accept the scales we used. The second waiver request, I'll just go through.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
The second waiver request regards surveyed property lines. We didn't do a full survey of the property. With all due respect, that's going to be a lot of time, a lot of money, and we're not at the property line, we're not near the property line. This project doesn't depend in any way, shape, or form exactly where those property lines are. And as I said in the waiver request, the boundary information on those plans was taken from a plan recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And so we think that the representation we put on there on the plans regarding the property lines should be sufficient. We would ask that waiver be granted. The next waiver requirement is for the proposed landscaping plan. And we haven't done that, quite frankly, for 2 reasons. First of all, I've been to the site. I firmly believe you're not going to see that base equipment or the base compound anywhere from any road or any other property. I was at the house on that property, and I couldn't even see where this equipment was going to go. If at the end of this process you firmly believe we need to put arborvitae around the compound, we'll do it.
All right.
we would ask, I mean, that's one of the things you're going to do the site walk
Yeah,
about. So,
right. Okay,
and certainly
great.
for a submission requirement to get this ball rolling, we don't think a landscaping plan is necessary. And, well, I said there were 2 reasons, I just covered them both. And so, my waiver request, actually, I had a question about this, but I'm going to keep going as I have it on my sheet. A letter of certification or compliance with the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act signed by an architect or an engineer. Again, this is an unmanned site. I don't think I should say again because I don't think I said that. This is an unmanned site, no water, no sewer, no pedestrian traffic, nothing like that. So we don't think we need to deal with the ADA, and we will ask for a waiver of that.
Do you agree with that, Tavis?
Do I agree with it being an unmanned site?
No, whether we can grant that waiver.
Yes, you can grant that waiver.
Oh, okay, all right.
And the last one, it's sections 173.16 through 173.18.
By granting the waiver, the planning board isn't absolving them of compliance.
Yeah, right.
Absolving them of a letter to
Yeah,
have a
right.
complete application.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good clarification as well. And then sections 173.16 through 18, these sections deal with financial surety to ensure the completion of all roads, drainage, and landscaping. We're not constructing a road. There's very little drainage issues here, given the size of the host property and the size of our 100 by 100 foot compound. And therefore, we don't believe we should have to post a surety bond for those items.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you've heard the waiver request. Also, the applicant has said that we can change our minds after the site walk on landscaping plans. What is your pleasure as far as the waivers are concerned?
I have a question, and that obviously you have to get equipment to this site. So obviously there is going to be a road there of some kind. But here you say that this does not involve road construction.
Right. It's not a road, it's a driveway. I mean, I don't mean to play semantics, but that's, a road would be going to someplace. That's our position.
So it's a driveway.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And again, just for clarification, on your plan, it does say road.
I know that.
Okay.
And you know how many times I've said to an engineer, it's a driveway, and I can't get him to change that, so, but it's a driveway.
Well,
I can prove it to you. Drive up there, see where you end up.
To that end, the surety in the site plan review requirements is speaking to a would-be public facility, and this is not a public facility.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, John.
So you're going to have workers at this place. The only screening that I would think of is for a bathroom area. Are you considering where people are going to take that necessary need?
There will be a porta potty there during construction. Construction is only going to take about 30 days, if that.
So is there any steep slopes around that area?
I think the topography is shown by the plan, but if I can borrow somebody's plan set, it'll take 5 minutes to. Thank you.
On Z2, please.
Yeah. Z2 shows the topography. Also, I think there might be a better plan.
Yes.
That shows that Z4. But I would note, during construction, they can set that porta potty up anywhere they want. They can put it down by the house. It's level on the driveway.
Well, I'm thinking about the road and the area for the steep slope. Is it going to get, is it going to get maintained, or is it just going to start to erode away and then it's going to be forgotten about?
Oh, no, it will be maintained. There will be a technician going up there once a month, basically in an SUV, if this site becomes operational. Each of those 4 carriers is going to send somebody up there about once a month, maybe twice. So there's going to be people going up there, technicians, calibrating the equipment.
Is that calculated in our ordinance? Is there any possibility of a steep slope and erosion and so forth?
I think that that's something the applicant can speak to. Yeah.
Not enough development to trigger the stormwater regs, and they're not proposing a structure, which is what the steep slopes speak to.
Okay.
We don't have regulations on where on private property you can put a driveway.
It will be maintained, though. I guarantee you that.
Well, they'll need to maintain it if they're going to do maintenance up there.
Right.
They're going to have to maintain the road, so.
To ensure access.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions on the waivers? If not, I'll make a motion to grant these waivers based on the testimony of the applicant. Somebody wants to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so with the waivers having been granted, that means that we can now open the public hearing. And, oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, yes, we need to make a motion. Yeah, okay, and I'll second that. All in favor of accepting the application as complete, please say aye. Aye. Okay, all right, so now we can move on to your presentation.
Well,
And
Madam
then-
Chair, this gets back to what I said before. I would really like to put that off into the next meeting. I think, in fairness to people who want to do the site walk, see the balloon test. I mean, I can do it tonight if you want, but
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, well, why don't we go ahead and open the public hearing? If you want to wait.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine, but let's hear from the public to hear what their thoughts are, and ZBA.
And if they want to wait until I do my presentation, that's
right.
fine as well.
Okay, all right, so you have a choice. Any member of the public that wants to speak now certainly can. And Audrey, any questions or comments or things that the ZBA would like, now would be the time to ask for that.
Well, we have a list of zoning requests for waivers. So
Okay.
I'd rather have people, the public want to speak to the site plan review issues, and then we'll go into
No, actually, we're opening for
Everything?
for everything, right. And for the ZBA to ask for any additional information they need or any questions they have.
And if
But- Go ahead.
If I may, I didn't go through the radio frequency report, which I'm going to do in my main presentation. You haven't seen the balloon test. If this is the ZBA over here, it took me half the night to figure that out. Sorry. If the ZBA wants to wait, you might be well advised until you see the balloon test and hear my main presentation regarding the radio frequency report, et cetera.
So I guess what I'm looking at here is your waivers and where they come from, and we can go through this section
I can do the waivers, yep.
without stepping into the other issues.
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
So let me just, I'm using your waiver
Yep.
request form. The first one, I don't believe is included in the application filing requirements, which, as far as I can tell, is the section that we are looking at. Because if you look at the end of the section, it says, "The zoning board of adjustment and planning board may waive one or more of the application filing requirements of this section." So I don't think we need to start any earlier than that. And that's 175, 168C. And then from there, down this page and a half over to,
Okay.
over
Okay,
to
so
the
you
end
want
of
me to
that
start with
section.
number 3? My waiver request?
Number 3, correct.
Okay. That waiver request, you know, the ordinance requires sightline drawings and photographs and sighting elevations, and I think the best evidence about that by far is going to be the balloon test. We did a profile of the pole in the plans. We submitted the visual map, but again, you know, not that I question it, but I just think the balloon test is way better. If I'm assuming most people have seen these monopoles as you drive up and down the highways. There's a reason for that. They're extremely popular. So we just think that the best evidence of the type of, for the information sought in those sections which I have in my waiver request is the balloon test, without a doubt. I can go on to number 4. As I did with the planning board, I'll just go through them
I mean,
all.
we may want to come back to
Yeah,
these at
sure.
another time, but
Yep.
why don't you go on through
Yep.
them?
The next one, number 4, you asked for a lot of information about the equipment, including antennas, mounts, shelters, cables, security barrier. Most of that information, in my opinion, is on the site plans. But a lot of it, you asked for information about equipment you're never going to be able to see. And some of that is within equipment cabinets. It's just not, in my opinion, going to add much to the discussion. We've also, as I said in the waiver request, we have provided data sheets for the antennas in the radio frequency exposure report. The one issue that I think should be addressed, but not necessarily tonight, is the color of the tower. We propose to use a galvanized steel finish. If you drive up and down the highway and you see these poles, that's what generally they are. We believe that's the best one. That's the one we're going to use for the balloon test. And by the way, I don't think I said this, we're going to take pictures of the balloon and then we superimpose a tower where the balloon is, and you're going to see the before and after pictures. And the tower that we superimpose on those photographs will use a galvanized steel finish. We can paint it if you want, but in my opinion, because this is not going to be backdropped by a mountain, so to speak, it doesn't make sense to paint it brown or green or anything like that. I think galvanized steel is the best color.
So as far as this goes, does this also fall under the planning board site plan review? Because if not, I think they have a weigh-in on this based on the
Well, it
number
probably
2.
does, and they probably do have a weigh-in.
All right.
But I read that as a submission requirement to the ZBA as well. So we're not, again, like the other issue, we're not taking it off the table altogether. We're just saying for tonight's purposes,
Okay.
we can
Sarah?
move it down.
If you look at 175, 165, B2, color, in small letter B, it says, to the extent that any personal wireless service facilities extend above the height of the vegetation immediately surrounding it, they shall be constructed of galvanized steel designed to maintain a light gray hue, or at the discretion of the planning board, painted in a light gray or light blue hue that blends with sky and clouds. So I think it's,
And this is where I'm a little bit confused, because the end of section 175, 168 specifically says that the zoning board and the planning board may waive one or more of the application filing requirements of the section, which is only 175, 168. It's not 175, 163, or a couple of the earlier ones that are on the
Right.
back of this.
Which is what the point I'm trying to make. I may be doing it inartfully, but I saw 175-168 as a submission requirement, requiring all this other information. All we're asking for is a submission requirement. We don't need to file it tonight. If you want to talk about that stuff, and certainly the color of tower is in play, there's no question about it.
So that was my feeling, is we're looking at the submission requirements tonight, any questions about it or more things we need, and then the other things might come in deliberation
Right.
of the special exception and/or the
I
variance.
guess I'm just confused as to why he's asking for waiver of something that in our ordinance says will be galvanized.
Because in order to have a complete application to the ZBA, I have to provide all that information, which, quite frankly, I don't think advances the ball.
But then it says it's the planning board's purview to
Right.
decide that, not the ZBA, so it's a little convoluted.
Well,
Which is not
Problem
surprising.
of having a joint meeting like this, there is an overlap of jurisdictions here.
Indeed.
We're trying to find our way through them as best we
Because
can.
you need to remember, the zoning board never accepts an application as complete.
Correct.
But you can request information as a board collectively determine you need to evaluate special exception and variance in this case.
Right. So you are
I mean,
at number 5, section 175, 168, C1D7.
I'm happy to move on to number 5.
Yeah.
Well, I looked up the actual, I mean, it calls for equipment brochures and materials to be, I mean, I didn't submit that, but that's number 4. I'm happy to move to number
Well,
5.
I would say generally that a number of these things fall under the building permit. So
Wow.
it's in here. Yes, it is.
Number 5, a computer-generated point-to-point printout showing the lighting of the site. The tower is not going to be lit. The only light will be a small 60-watt bulb or similar bulb on the shelter itself or the equipment cabinet. And so I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what's involved in a computer-generated point-to-point printout. It sounds really difficult and expensive. We're going to have a household bulb up there on an equipment cabinet that's going to be probably 5 feet off the ground.
That's why you're asking for a waiver.
That's why I'm asking for a waiver for that computer-generated point-to-point printout.
I just had a quick question out of curiosity.
Yep.
When you say it's not going to be lit, it's not required to have any light on the top because it's at the top of this hill. It comes, I mean, we have helicopters that go through that area all the time over to Huggins, and I was just concerned about that tower
Yep.
right there and not being lit at the top.
We,
Aviation.
generally speaking, under 200 feet, they do not get lit, as a general rule. There are exceptions if you are in flight paths. We do what's called an FAA scrub. We have a consultant who determines whether or not we are in a flight path, a recognized flight path, and we are not. And so,
I live on College Road, and I see a lot of helicopters that are probably coming from Portland, go right over my house on the way to Huggins, so I was just kind of concerned.
I think you'd get far more pushback if we put a light on it.
There's also a small airstrip on Penn Air, just south of there.
Yeah, but if he's not,
Well,
if he's not in an FAA flight path, he can establish that, he doesn't need to have a light on the pole.
It is also sort of similar to the height of the trees, so therefore, if you're that low, you're probably in trouble.
Well, you
Or you land.
know, that's exactly right. And I used to say that to boards all the time, and a couple boards took real offense at that, like, you know, but I'm like, look, if you're at 160 feet, or sometimes you're at 120 feet, and you're flying a helicopter or a private plane, you got a problem. I mean, you're over a piece of private property. I don't say that anymore, but I agree with you 100%.
They would need to be 400 feet above the ground, wouldn't they?
I
It's 5.
don't know what the requirements are for helicopters. But anyway, and again, all we're asking for is,
They also have a private helicopter right down there on 28 with gravel pits. Sorry.
well, I'm going to make a note. I will double check the FAA scrub for this site, but
It used to be called Antonucci's Pit. I don't know who owns it now. Do you, Brad?
And I will double check that, confirm that for the next hearing. But I think that, I mean, we got a little off on a tangent there. We were talking about the computer-generated point-to-point printout. We would ask for a waiver of that. The sixth one is a noise report certified and signed by an acoustical engineer. We're asking for a waiver from that report. We submitted the spec sheet for the generator. And at full load, it's 67 dBA at 23 feet away. We submitted a noise chart, which honestly I printed off the internet, but you can do that on your own. And 67 dBA is about the noise of a vacuum cleaner. That's at 23 feet away. And to remind everybody, the nearest property line here is 185 feet away. The generator is only going to operate in two circumstances: during a power outage up there, when presumably a lot of other people are going to be running their generators, and during, I don't know if it's a weekly or monthly test now they said it, they have a regularly scheduled test where they turn these things over for 20 minutes or so, and those can be scheduled, computer scheduled, or programmed, I should say, to do it like during the day at 2 p.m.
Right now you're speaking at 60 dB.
Thank you. My point exactly.
Could that be changed to will be programmed rather than can be programmed?
Sure, you can make that as a condition.
It's not a problem for you, but it
Nope.
would make it clear.
Yep. And so anyway, I mean, an acoustical report is going to be extremely expensive, and given these facts, we think we should be granted a waiver. And then the last one is the environmental assessment of the Nepa report. The Nepa report, I'm going to get this wrong, I should know it, it's the National Environmental Programmatic Act, I believe. But it's like this thick. It covers all sorts of issues: historical sites, archaeological sites, environmental sites, et cetera, et cetera. They do a Native American survey of Native American tribes, things like that. We are asking that we be allowed to file that with the town. It's a federal requirement. We're asking that we be allowed to submit the environmental assessment to the town as a condition of approval. At the same time, it's filed with the FCC. To require us to do it now, when we're not even sure this site's going to get approved, is very expensive and time-consuming and honestly not fair. And I'm put this in my waiver request. I'll just say it. I'm not sure you could force us to file it as a condition, as a submission requirement, for what it's worth. So in other words, you're going to get that. It's just not tonight. I would also note, if we flunk the environmental assessment, we can't build the site. Am I right, Peter? Yeah. So you're not giving up anything by granting this waiver. If we can't get a clean environmental assessment, we can't build.
And then the last two actually are site plan review items, so I'm not sure why they're on our page.
Probably my mistake.
Section 173, 15, and 16.
Oh, well, that was a,
They've already been waived.
that was a typo. I already talked about those. Yeah, sorry about that.
So I want to make sure, out of all of this, that, Tavis, that you got that change from regularly to will schedule tests, or in the noise part, that they will rather than they may.
If that ultimately comes out of an approval as a condition, that can be added.
So these are the ones that you'd like to waive, and then there's a whole bunch other ones that we haven't talked about.
Okay. For necessary waivers?
No, in the application procedures,
Okay.
all these other ones, we can, I mean, we're starting with, I can knock off the ones that we just heard about.
Okay.
Some of them are pretty mundane. the name, address, telephone number, co-applicants. So number 3, a licensed carrier shall either be an applicant or a co-applicant. So Verizon's not listed on the application. Are they represented by somebody particularly?
I'm sorry, what section are you looking at?
I'm at 175, 168, C14. Yes,
175, 168, C1,
3.
okay.
And then,
Well, we have Verizon signed up, and we have a letter of intent from T-Mobile. I mean, to the extent that, I mean, I hate to sound like a lawyer, I'm not sure you can require a licensed.
I would just ask the town planner, is that sufficient,
Carrier.
the letters of intent to cover this number 3?
It was sufficient when I reviewed it, yes.
Any questions from
The background to that being, it isn't somebody that just wants a 160-foot pole in the hopes that somebody might come at some point.
It was mentioned by Kathy on planning board that you've submitted notification to the municipalities within a 20-mile radius. Can we have that for our packet?
It is in your packet.
The back page gave us a list of those that were notified.
They did in here? Okay, I'm sorry, I haven't seen it.
I mean, I haven't seen what it said, but I've got we've got the list of what.
Okay,
where
good.
Yeah,
they sent.
In all sincerity, it probably goes to 24 miles, because I didn't want to draw lines in the wrong spots. Guessing.
The citing file requirements, C.
Excuse me, could I
Yes.
ask a question under location filing requirements? It says a town and,
Where are you exactly?
it's right after C. It's a subpart of C, where you just were. It's like,
General, I've seen it before, but I don't see it now.
okay, 175, 168, there's a big A, big B, big C, then you go to the next page, and at the top, at the very bottom of the last page, it says, there's no page numbers on here, I'm sorry.
I know.
It says location filing requirements, and one is identify the subject property, tax map, zoning
Yep.
district, all that.
Yep.
Number 5 says a town and region-wide map showing the other existing personal wireless service facilities in the town and outside town within 20 miles of its corporate limits. And then 6 says the proposed location of all existing and future personal wireless service facilities in the town on a town-wide map for this area.
I had those starred also as wanting to know about those 2 items.
okay. Well, as far as the existing wireless services in town, we provided that in the RF report. That's in there.
Is that more than just the Verizon ones? Did you provide all?
No, they would be only for Verizon. That is a Verizon report. We don't, I mean, if you look at the RF report, which was Exhibit 2 or is Exhibit 2, this is Verizon. It's a Verizon report only. But if you look at page 6, this shows the site-specific information for the existing plan and proposed Verizon sites.
Again, it's just Verizon where.
Right.
And here's my question, because I saw someplace else that all locations had been looked at, which I would assume would mean other towers that aren't Verizon, as well as buildings and mountains and.
Oh, we looked at all the towers,
Yeah.
Carriers.
but
Carriers on the
we,
towers.
well,
No,
we
I
don't,
don't- towers.
we can't speak to other carriers. You're asking, we're not sure where all the other carrier sites are, and we certainly don't know what the other carriers' future plans are.
So in that
So-
case, how do you know that you can't co-locate on somebody else's tower if you don't know where they are?
We know where the towers are.
Okay, that's-
And we address all the towers in the report.
In number 6?
I don't know if it's number 6 or if it's in another section of the report, but we do address them.
So I'd like to kind of find out where that is so I can,
I'd like to kind of find out where that
Well,
20-mile map
okay,
is.
can I, Here are your choices, Madam Chair. I can either present the entire report tonight
Yes.
or
Right.
do it in October when everybody, and I don't mean this directed to anybody, when everybody's had a chance, perhaps including the audience, to read through it. If I can get back to the waiver request, and then I'll bring it up to what you were just saying.
Oh, I thought we were done with the waiver request.
Oh, no, because
I asked a
Ms.
question.
Silk asked about this map of all sites within 20 miles.
Which
But
isn't
that's
here.
that's not a waiver request.
It is. If you look to the very first one, I was asked to start with number 3, so I started with number 3. Number 1 deals with this very issue. And there's a lot of materials here, so it's confusing. I get it.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Who owns the tower? Is it GMR Holdings leasing space to Verizon?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So section 1 is section 175, 163. We're in section 175, 168.
Okay, that may well be a typo, and I apologize. But that waiver request deals with a map showing all the carriers' current facilities within 20-mile radius. If I had the section incorrect, I apologize.
It actually says Verizon facilities.
Right.
Right. So you're not.
We don't know where everybody else's sites are. This is Verizon. We don't know where Sprint's sites are, T-Mobile sites may be. If I may speak to the bigger issue about the 20-mile radius, okay? This is a common request in ordinances. Someone had the idea of, okay, show us all sites within 20 miles. 20 miles from where I'm standing brings us down to Rochester. These sites only have a footprint of 3 to 4 miles in the best situations, maybe 5 in the best. This site right here, because the topography, is only going to have a footprint of about a mile or 2. I don't like that. I wish we had a big footprint, but a site 20 miles away doesn't provide coverage to Wolfeboro, not at all. A site 10 miles away doesn't provide coverage to Wolfeboro.
I believe you.
So, what's that?
Is this the map? The
No,
405?
that's the visual. That's the site one. The map that we provided is in the RF report, which is, if you look at the RF report, which is Exhibit 2, you've got it. There you go. Now, hold right there. There's a map that shows in the RF report. Turn around. Everybody can see it. The site that we are proposing is the one right in the middle. It's marked Wolfeboro 2, 150 AGL. That's the proposed location. If you look at, and that's in blue. In black, there's a site there, there's a site there, there's a site there. If you follow, I can do that again, if you saw that.
It's 2 different maps.
Yeah, there are several different.
Yep.
But if I may, that's the proposed location right there. I'll talk to the ZBA. You have a different map, but it's the same one. That's the proposed location. The other on-air sites are these. Boom, boom, and boom.
The other on-air Verizon
They
sites.
are on-air Verizon sites. And if you look at the one,
So there could be T-Mobile on there and Sprint. And
exactly, but we don't necessarily know that because they're competitors.
Well, can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the Verizon, whether it be a tower or a monopole.
Yep.
That they build,
Yep.
they in turn, I assume, lease out, no? Who leases out from the other carrier?
Can I just,
We just
could
went
I
over
just
that.
ask a
GMR
very
Holdings
basic
owns the tower.
question?
They lease to other
Could I just ask a basic?
Well, can I answer her question first, ma'am?
Okay, but I would,
GMR is going to build and own this tower.
Right.
GMR leases to Verizon, T-Mobile, anybody else that wants to come to town.
Okay, so GMI knows who's on his pole.
Yes.
So why can't you give us mapping that shows that there can't be location on any of?
We do. We do. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's the nearest Verizon site. I'd have to look at the chart, but here's the nearest Verizon site. The green is the coverage from that site. It doesn't reach this area. This is another Verizon site. The coverage doesn't reach this area. This is another Verizon site. The coverage doesn't reach this area. Now, these sites are all within several miles. To bring this back to the original issue, okay, your ordinance says you have to show us all sites within 20 miles.
And that 20 may just be hooked to the fact that you have to notify people within
Okay,
20 miles.
But if a site 3 miles away doesn't reach the area we're trying to bring coverage, there's no point to show sites 20 miles away because they don't reach it either.
That's why you want the waiver.
That's why we want the waiver.
And I never said that I wanted 20 miles away. I
understand.
said, are there other towers within 3 miles? And actually, the answer in your report is on page 5, site search and selection process. It says, after a search of the area had been completed, Verizon Wireless determined that there are no existing structures suitable for co-location with respect to its network requirements, and that the proposed monopole at 1642 Center Street is the most appropriate solution. And the paragraph before that says that they searched for other poles.
Right.
Did they?
Yes,
Okay.
but the reason I'm talking about the 20 mile is because we were doing the waivers. And the first waiver I asked for, I tried to, and I apologize if I had the incorrect citation. I may have had the wrong section number. But the first waiver we asked for is a waiver from the requirement of doing a map of all sites within 20 miles. And then this, Ms. Silk asked the question about the 20 miles, and that's how we got into that. The separate issue is, which I think goes to the merits, not to submission, do we need this site? And I'm prepared to do that at the hearing on the merits. I'm going to walk through this report very carefully. I'm going to show you why existing Verizon sites don't reach this area, why there aren't any other towers in town that can be used to reach this area, etc.
Okay, so the reason I got there was because it's under application procedure.
Yep.
Okay, was your original presentation going to include going through all of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then all of these items will be addressed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
we definitely got ahead of ourselves. I'm not in a bad way. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
If I
right.
may, for 2 seconds, can I turn around and show the audience what I've been pointing to?
Sure, go ahead.
The last 5 minutes. I'll be very quick, just because I assume that nobody has it. This is the plot we're talking about.
Laura's,
This
I
thing,
know, that's
says I
what
cannot see
he
it from
was
my
the
house.
one that changed.
we should shut this down now
The house is right
Yeah.
here.
and move,
And
let
I
people
would
say
thank you,
something and
But I'll
then
bet you.
adjourn.
And I would also note, we will have a radio frequency engineer here for our hearing on the merits if you want to get into detailed questions.
I have one other question
yeah.
that may add to it. Is GMR the only company in the area that puts up towers, or are there other towers that are owned by people other than GMR?
There are other towers that are constructed and owned by companies other than GMR. It used to be, I mean, when I started doing this work 20 years ago, the carriers were building the towers. They got out of that long ago. Very rarely does an actual carrier build a tower, at least in this part of the country. I can't speak to other places.
Is it a GMR tower at Pierce Camp Birchmont?
I'm sorry?
Is it a GMR carrier at Pierce Camp
I'm told no
Birchmont?
by Mr. Cook.
It's not a Verizon carrier as well?
It was originally built by AT&T. I believe they have since sold it. It is, so that tower over at Camp Birchmont was originally built by AT&T. That they ended up selling their tower portfolio. I'm not sure who the owner is now, but it's not AT&T, and they have since leased to, as the board knows better than I, Verizon and some of the other carriers.
Not
Another
US
one that's
Cellular.
kind of comparable would be the Fifth Estate Tower, which is up off of Pine Hill Road. That's a 170-foot tower. That is owned by a company called Fifth Estate, and they sublet to pretty much all the carriers at this point. So T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, I believe US Cell is also on that tower as well.
Thank you.
So the radio report includes all these other towers as well?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think what you're struggling with is it's an ordinance that's kind of built to address all types of issues, and some of the stuff that you're looking for, like the lighting studies, some sites it's more appropriate than other sites. Given where this is such a remote site, that's where most of these waivers are coming from. But and the other part about it is the way it's built is you're asking provide everything within 20 miles. That makes sense if Verizon were standing here asking to build a tower for Verizon. They would show you everything around for Verizon. It doesn't make sense for us because we don't own any other towers within, I think we do, within 20 miles. But certainly, so you're kind of mixing the applicant, a tower developer applicant, with a carrier applicant. And so that's why a lot of these are a little difficult to deal with and a little
Peter,
confusing.
could you just identify yourself?
Sure. My name is Peter Cook here on behalf of GMR Holdings.
Thank you.
Do project management work.
Oh, okay.
So,
Mr. Springer, are you going to go through all of this in your presentation? So, and I take it you're going to do it in an orderly fashion.
I
so
try.
that then people can ask questions
Yep.
as you go along. Okay, I really think that's how we should proceed.
Tonight,
But, no.
No, in October.
After the
Yep.
site walk and
Yep.
the balloon float.
I will do that.
So, yeah, okay, but do any members of the public want to, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yes, Gordon Lang, I'm a property owner in North Wolfeboro, and I have a curiosity question. I'm not familiar with how monopoles are supported. Do you drill down, and if so, how deep do you go, and do we know anything about the geology on the site that you're planning?
They put in a big foundation. It's basically usually cement. They generally do not do the geotech or the borings until after they get approved for obvious reasons.
How deep typically does one go for a monopole?
60 feet? 8, 10 feet, 6 feet. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
any other member of the public, or, okay?
My name's Brian Argue. I'm also a property owner in North Wolfeboro. And before we get in, I have no presentation. I don't have any notes or anything, but we've been getting into the weeds here a little bit. And I just want to be clear on, I guess, the benefit that we're going to see from this tower. And I understand GMR will have a tangible benefit of a revenue stream from the carriers. The property owner at 1642 will certainly have a benefit from the revenue stream from GMR. But the general public, I'm less clear on that benefit. And I'll just elaborate a little bit further. I drive that road probably 10 to 12 times a day. And my observations are there's a dead spot from roughly Pork Hill to Cornerstone Christian Academy. And for that distance and that speed limit on that road, that's like an 18-second gap. So I guess you're trying to fill that gap. And I've just thrown that out there. How important is it to fill that 18-second gap? I'm still rolling here. So there's a lot of construction, a lot of revenue, a lot of cost. Again, is it worth the 18 seconds? You also made reference to the fact of the emergency radio potential use there. Again, I drive that a dozen times a day. Part of my responsibilities are a first responder. I've had 0 issues of any radio coverage going through. There is no dead spot. And again, I've been doing that for probably 10, 12 years now. So I understand the benefits for GMR. I understand the benefits for a property owner. But is this all worth an 18-second gap in cell phone coverage? So just open question.
Okay, I'll be happy to address it. I'm going to be very brief because this is more in my main presentation, but I will read from a letter from the Chief Zotti, if I'm saying that correctly, Wolfeboro Fire Rescue Department, September 2. He says, that this tower, quote, is expected to significantly improve our emergency communications in the field by eliminating many so-called dead spots. This will improve our operations and increase the safety of our members operating under emergency conditions, end quote. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I'll talk about that more in October. We think there's a real benefit to this.
Appreciate that letter. Again, I'm just going on my actual, tangible experience. 12 years, 10 times a day, doing it 32 days a year. That's 23,000 passes through that area that I've done. Of those 23,000 passes, I've had 0 radio communication failures. I have had the 18-second cell phone gap. And again, that's just my anecdotal experience over that period.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
Well, you said the ZBA could talk during public comment.
Yes, yep.
Thank you. You brought up the letter that you have there. I have an issue with your comments about discussions with the Heritage Commission, the Conservation Commission, and a list of others. What I would like as one member, and I hope my ZBA members support this, I would like something in writing, because a chairman or a member of a particular commission doesn't have the authority to make this sort of statement and talk to their other board or committee members. It would be like any of us giving our opinion without talking to our counterparts. And I think that a letter is only prudent to come from the various entities that you said you've spoken with.
Well, let me kind of back up a little bit on this. As part of, John had mentioned the Nepa process, which is our compliance, or the carrier's compliance, as part of their licensing. They need to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act. As part of that policy act, we need to do a reach out. So our historic, part of the sign off on that policy is to reach out to State Historic Preservation Office. State Historic Preservation Office then typically defers to either a local historic district committee or something in our town, which would be the Heritage Commission. So we actually did not reach out to them. They were forwarded that correspondence with regard to the potential for the pole. And the reason we start that before we get here is because it's a long process. There's a long comment period. It also requires that the application be noticed in the local paper. So at the end of the day, we didn't make a presentation to the Heritage Commission. It became part of their discussion internally. We weren't invited to go there. There was some correspondence back and forth with our historic consultant. Secondly, Conservation Commission, I'm not sure how they heard about it. I believe somebody at the Heritage Commission sent it over to somebody at the
planning director.
So it's not really part of our process, other than the fact that it's part of the National Environmental Policy Act compliance. So, and the other part, one of the other parts of the National Environmental Policy Act is wetlands and impact to wetlands, which might be part of why that would have been sent over to the Conservation Commission. We're not within we do nothing that triggers Conservation Commission review. And I think through our historic consultant, we have had some back and forth with the Heritage Commission, and most of that correspondence has been, we understand that there may be some concerns. We are going to be going per the formal process with the town, which is to meet with both the ZBA and Planning Board. At that time, we'll be scheduling a balloon float, and that balloon float, as John has mentioned a couple of times, is probably the best way to see if there are concerns from a Heritage or Historic Commission review, and if there's anything that comes out of it. So I hear what you're saying, if you have something internal that you're doing, but I just want to make sure you understand that it's kind of indirectly that those boards have been contacted, just due to the process that the NEPA process does. So,
I hear you.
yep.
But what I would say is when we get to the next step, it would be nice to either have a representation or a letter representing that their board or commission or committee has reviewed, discussed, run it by them, and I don't think it's any hardship or any difficulty for a letter to come from these various entities at the next meeting.
Well, if I may. I mean, with all due respect, Peter just described the process we have to go through at the federal level, okay? I say this all due respect. If those entities feel the need, this is why we have a public hearing, okay? If they want to come, they can come and present. I don't know whether they would give us a letter. I don't know what the response would be, but, you know, we're supplying everything we're supposed to supply under the ordinance.
Well, I think with due respect, I think you missed my point. It says here, and/or we have reached out and/or had discussions with the chairman of the Wolfeboro Heritage Commission.
Right.
The chairman of the Wolfeboro Heritage Commission has no authority to tell you whether she thinks
Right.
it's bad or indifferent. And I'm on the Heritage Commission. I have not heard a word about it.
Okay. And I may
Other
have,
than this.
may have been inartfully, I may have been inartful the way I wrote that letter, but as Peter said, what happened was our historic consultant doing the NEPA report that I referred to earlier reached out to the State Historic Preservation Office, which is what she has to do. That person, as I understand the process, then reached out to the town level. It wasn't us. We didn't do that. If I gave the impression I didn't.
Is it any imposition for you to reach out to these entities and just send them a notice that we're having a meeting at September, whatever it was?
Well, we do that through the NEPA process. We're doing exactly what the law requires. If you're on the Heritage Commission, I mean, we can reach out, but the Heritage Commission can come or not.
Well,
I mean, we've noticed it.
Fine, we don't have to belabor it. I would
Okay.
ask the town planner to notify, just with a, like you're going to do the public notice kind of thing. Just send a memo or something similar to the various entities so they know the meeting's going to be next, whatever it was.
So
Just simple
the
little memo or something.
the NHB letter request for endangered species and wildlife, do you submit for that letter? Like they do in a wetlands application?
We reach out to a variety of people, including wildlife folks. So for wildlife is one, tribal notice is another. If there's wetlands, we typically kick to the local CONSCOM or the state level if there isn't. And it's mostly in State Historic Preservation Office.
But I am aware that the NHB is the organization that reviews the area for those natural species and if there's anything in that area that you're disturbing, and that's the reason why I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, our consultant does that as well. So they would do a survey of the property if we were disturbing something.
They would have that letter because they would be cleared of that area if you had that.
They would submit to it, and we would get a letter back as part of the NEPA process.
So you could provide that possibly.
As part of NEPA, yes.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Tavis.
Just going to say, the state, this is to notify you that the lead State Historic Preservation Office, Town Historic, or THPO, has concurred with the following filing, date of action 9/6/22. Direct effect, no historic properties and area of potential effects. Visual effect, no adverse effect on historic properties and the area of potential effects. Archaeological sensitivity. Concur with the results of Phase 1A archaeological sensitivity assessment. Recommendation of no further study. So what this email is saying is that the state side of what they've been talking about has reached out and received no feedback from Conservation Heritage or the town with regard to those effects.
if I may
Okay.
address that, in the
Yeah,
interest
yeah,
of
just
transparency.
introduce yourself again, please.
Gordon Lang.
Yeah, okay.
Property owner and also president of the North Wolfeboro Area
Okay.
Association. And in the interest of transparency, Suzanne, Maggie Steers, the president of the Wolfeboro Heritage Commission, contacted me earlier this summer for feedback on what we felt were sensitive areas within the circumference that could be affected by this site. We gave a few sites that were of concern in the Johnson Road area, things that were of historical significance. We're not sure yet what the visual impact will be, what other kinds of impact there may be yet. We gave a preliminary, unofficial information to Maggie. She passed that on. I would not suggest that anything is a definitive answer at this point yet. I'm very interested in the balloon test. I'm sure that the Heritage Commission is very interested in the balloon test too. We're going to alert our membership to be on the lookout, see what they can see, and I suspect that we will be having a board meeting of the North Wolfeboro Area Association to see what people observed. We would be passing that information on to the Heritage Commission as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Kathy, I had one question.
Yeah.
I had one of my neighbors call in, we're in that area right there, and ask the question about adverse health effects from the radiation that comes off these towers. If you could have something that you could supply at the next meeting?
Don't shoot the messenger. Under federal law, you can't rely on, you can ask that question, but you can't use the answer in any way, shape, or form to inform your decision, which is a fine line. We submitted the RF report regarding radio frequency emissions from the site. That's an area governed by the FCC. Neither of these boards can make a decision based on any potential health issues or alleged health issues regarding these sites. That's well-settled law.
I'll let them know.
Oh, what's that?
I will let them know.
Yeah,
your
and
answer.
I mean, I hate to give that answer because that's like the other one. People get their back up. Well, that's the law. So I would also note, in my humble opinion, I'm not a scientist, I'm a lawyer. These sites are safe. Portsmouth Hospital has about 4 sets of antennas on their rooftop.
But everybody there is sick.
This is true. They're already sick.
That was good.
I
any event.
would suggest to all board members, both boards, go online, get a précis of the SCC Telecommunications Act, find out what you can and can't do. Save some time.
And don't hold that cell phone near your head.
And I don't mean about health effects, I mean about what we can ask the applicant to do or not do.
Oh, okay, any other questions?
Just one more
Go
point
ahead,
to
Doug.
speak to Suzanne's issue that she mentioned earlier. It's my understanding that the Wolfeboro Conservation Commission received notice of this cell tower in July, at which point they had the opportunity to make comments.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Doug. Go ahead, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ken Perry, also from North Wolfeboro, and we received notice in July as well through the Heritage Commission, and our board discussed it, and then we reached out to our membership, and we discussed it at our annual meeting on August 12th or thereabouts, with about 40 people present, and you see there's no outcry here. We've had a big discussion about it in our area as being the benefits far outweigh any possible negatives because of the dead zones, which just aren't on 28. They're on parts of Pork Hill, North Wolfeboro Road, Trask Mountain Road, and we think this will help. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, then, does everybody ask questions for anything else they might want?
I have
Yeah,
one
okay, go
comment.
ahead.
I did not see the TRC checklist report.
We had one, it's just not filled out. It's in the packet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
TRC?
8:17.
It should be there.
No concern.
So I was just concerned about the grade of the road and the fire trucks in case one of those arrays falls down, blows up. No comment from,
We don't have driveway grade specifications.
Okay, so I think we're all set. And you're going to continue your meeting on October 3rd, is that right? That's your next meeting after the balloon float.
Right. Do we not
to
have
vote on
time
that.
for the 19th?
You need to,
Open the public hearing on the variance. Clerk? Read that? And the special exception?
No, yeah, I don't think you do that at the meeting, don't?
We have to open the public hearing in order to set a date.
Yep.
So we need to close ours.
no.
No,
I would, the way it was explained by town council was that the opening, the fact that it's open right now is you're already open. So
Yeah.
at this point, you just need to continue to a date certain. So ZBA needs to do a date certain for, let me guess, 9/24 at 9 a.m. for the site walk. The balloon float, 9/24, 9 to 12 on the 24th with the rain date of the 25th. And then continue to a date certain for 9/9, well, probably 10/3.
10-3.
10-3
okay.
For the planning board, right?
for
No,
ZBA.
for ZBA.
10-3 for the zoning board, and then 10-4 for the planning board, with the understanding that the planning board may need to continue again if ZBA doesn't
Yeah.
conclude on 10-3.
Yep. And are both those at 7 o'clock p.m.?
Yes.
Yes.
But they need to say it and vote on it.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
So that
second?
was a motion.
Second.
No,
As you stated, Tavis.
oh,
All-
Aye.
Yes, I wanted to make an amendment to that motion. Did we include the site walk specifically from 9 to 9:30?
9 to 12.
No,
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 the site
that's a
walk.
balloon date.
Well, the site walk's going to take as long as you want. You're just telling people to get there at 9.
At 9,
Okay. Was that included?
I believe so.
yeah.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so your date is settled, and now we have to continue this hearing until at least October 4th.
So moved.
Okay.
seconded.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, so I think we've hit everything. Okay, so we can have a motion to adjourn now?
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
all in favor,
Okay.
Aye.
please? Aye, okay.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.